completely identifiable. They were identifying the only witness to his mother's murder, and there was a possibility that some deranged person may come back to try and dispose of the only witness to his crime. I knew from now on, if we weren't in danger before, now we were in the gravest of danger.
2-year-old Alex Nichol is said to be bearing up, but in a state of deep shock after his ordeal.
I think a 2-year-old would have no concept of death at all.
How long could this trauma last?
Well, it could last a lifetime.
We were able to find some sanctuary at my mother's home. Alex, he's had nightmares, terrible nightmares. He couldn't sleep soundly through the night. For the last hour, he'd be in a difficult place. So whatever I was feeling, I had to swallow it, put it away, deal with it later. You can't deal with it now. No matter how terrible my circumstances were in that particular moment, our child needs came first.
The police effort to hunt down the murderer involves 54 detectives.
What name is that then?
This is one of 3 special incident rooms. There have already been 1,500 calls from the public. Every one has to be assessed and acted on.
It was a very complex case to put together.
One incident room.
We had to go through this chaos of getting as much information as possible. The telephones are ringing.
You've obviously seen the photographs of Rachel. Yeah. Had you seen her before up here at all?
On the common, we would have taken steps. Surely somebody must have seen the person coming towards the murder scene or going away from the murder scene. Lots of pressure was on to find a witness.
They've already been stopped, but we are responding as quickly as we can. We do have a backlog. I will not deny that, but we eventually will get round to see everything. It's left to me, and it's left to the officers that I have working for me. We will catch it.
Samples were taken from the crime scene and submitted to the lab for DNA analysis, and I just kept hitting a wall. The biologist was saying, "We're getting nothing." And I thought, "What do you mean you're getting nothing? What about her DNA?" "No, we're getting nothing." And I'd never encountered that before. That was kind of strange. And so the scientist was saying, "Well, we'll look at it again from a different aspect." But still nothing. There's this feeling of hopelessness because this person had to be traced ASAP, and here we were 2 or 3 weeks down the road and no nearer that than we had been on the day.
There we had a murder scene with no witnesses, with no forensic evidence, and that was it. Where do you go from there?
Their situation being as dire as it was, the police then wanted to talk to Alex about what he'd seen, because our greatest concern is that we find this person, but more than anything, that we stop it from happening to anybody else if we possibly could.
We had to be very careful how we dealt with young Alex because this was obviously a traumatic incident that he witnessed. Therefore, we were obviously taking advice as to how to do that. And the advice was that we should deal with that through a child psychologist.
I was a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and this was unique in our experience. This is the only case I've ever worked with where the child was the only witness to a crime of violence.
Yeah, so like you want to find one. You like all of them, yeah.
I said we could use my home, and the first interview there was a policeman there, Andre, and myself, and the little boy. The police were intensely hopeful this child, young as he was, could give them more information. I had no experience of how this piece of very intensive work could affect a small child, and yet the rational part of our brain fully agreed that it was important to try and prevent further killings. So there was a dilemma there.
It was was just trying to be as vigilant as possible. If I felt we crossed the line, we just had to stop.
There was a scary bit yesterday, wasn't there? What was that about? Huge bands were on the ground and three looked like breathing it, wasn't there? They were covered in blood, weren't they?
Covered in blood.
Mm.
That must have been difficult.
The decision was made that it would be best if her questions came through me to get Alex to respond as naturally as possible.
Alex had nothing, didn't she? You had blood on you.
We were both really covered in blood, weren't they? When you were with Mummy that day.
Mostly I was just trying to focus only on Alex and to observe him. He had few words at this point. He was reluctant to look at people, but I think he was showing stress after a very, very extreme trauma. His whole body language, every movement he made showed that. I think you know now that terrible things suddenly happened. That made him very frightened.
From Jean's point of view, she thought it was there to push.
So when he saw the man standing there, was he looking at you or was he looking at Mummy? So he didn't say anything to you? He didn't shout at you? Did he shout at you or not?
Was my question. Led more towards the incident. You could see there was a change in him. He was definitely tensing up.
Did he hit you? With his hand?
My concern wasn't how much information we could get out of a small child. It was, what sessions like this, what distress they were going to cause and what damage they were going to do to his recovery.
No, it's very painful to remember, isn't it?
There was a mystery about just how much he might have seen. I wish that he hadn't seen any of it. That was a hope. He'd been pushed away, and all this had taken place out of his recognition and understanding.
You know when he was lying on the ground and the man had gone? Did you say anything to her? Did you talk to her at all? Were you scared? Did you think she was asleep? Did you? Did you want her to wake up? Did you want her to wake up? Did she wake up?
It was pretty intense. Every few days there was another session. This was going on over several weeks. Alex was able to again show incredible recall, the small child. The events, how they unfolded, where, the bad man came out from behind them, and how afterwards he moved away, washed his hands in a stream, and then disappeared.
Alex, man virtual money. What type of trousers do you have? That one.
And then Alex started to describe this person.
What colour were they? What colour were his shoes?
Got a description from him of a younger white man, white shirt over blue trousers, brown shoes. But the most significant item of all was Alex remembering that he was wearing a belt over his white shirt, almost like a butcher's apron.
Alex's description was similar to one from a woman who'd seen a man walking towards the murder scene 10 minutes before the murder, wearing a white top, dark trousers, carrying a sort of bag. So we came to the conclusion that of all the people on the cover, that was most likely to be the suspect. Now, we just have to find him.
Superintendent, would it be fair to say you've made very little progress in reality so far?
Yes, that is a fair assessment. I would have hoped by now that we'd have had the men in custody, but when you see the enormity of my problem here on Common, you'll understand why.
In the absence of evidence, police have turned to criminal psychologists to help build up a profile of the attacker.
At the time, we're seeing films such as Silence of the Lambs,
We're interviewing all the serial killers now in custody for a psychobehavioral profile.
where criminal psychologists work out who their suspect was through offender profiling.
I'm interested in it. As I say, the Americans have a lot of success.
One expert they've consulted is Robert Ressler, a retired FBI agent. Ressler has interviewed many of America's most notorious sex killers, like Jeffrey Dahmer. He says the man who murdered Rachel McCall is disorganized.
The first thing people think about is this is a serial killer. We're going to see this again within days or weeks. We're dealing with a disorganized, frenzied, possibly a mentally disordered individual.
Although John Vassar met Bob Ressler, that was basically a flying visit, but it was thought that we probably should progress the offender profiling